Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is Refuge from Narcissism, and this refugee video is a sponsored video, sponsored by Joe for Life Goes On. And this is going to be quite long. You know right now how long it's going to be because it's already finished. But watch the sunrise with me behind me. So here we go with Life Goes On's story.
Hi, Ollie. Hi, everyone. I just want to give a little warning. There is going to be adult content. I wrote everything down, so I'm just going to read what I wrote. Okay. Hi. I've watched your channel off and on for years. I've wanted to write in, but I never had the courage to do so. So many letters from so many people have helped me see the truth that's been going on in my life. Your perspective has also been a tremendous help. So thank you very much for everything. I wish I could do more to help your channel. And that said, here we go. I'm a pretty strong and defiant in a quiet way kind of person. I've always believed that I'd never be in an abusive relationship. I never put up with crap like that from men. I'd seen how my father treated my mom, and no thank you. I watched my mom's ex go from being a Mr. Nice Guy into a monster, and witnessed her go back to him time and time again. She started dating him years after the divorce. I couldn't understand it, and I promised myself it would never happen to me. I pretty much kept everyone at arm's length. I mean, I'm nice and all, but very careful who I let in. I thought very little of women who were and stayed in abusive relationships. My opinion has dramatically changed. Anyway, he was doing work for my landlady. When I met him, there was an immediate attraction, but I told myself it was all in my head and that he most likely wasn't interested in me. I soon found out I was wrong. I was very, very wrong. He appeared charming yet humble, confident yet sincere, professional yet there was a childlikeness about him. He asked me out after a few weeks. I clean my landlady's home once a week to lessen the rent, and that's how we met. She introduced us. We seemed to hit it off pretty good and had a lot in common, family history-wise at least. We'd both been through a lot of hardship and had come out on the other end stronger for it, and neither of us wanted the other to have pity for us. It was what it was, and we were where we are today because of it. Life had brought us together, according to him, and as a result, it was a beautiful thing. There were some red flags in the beginning, but I ignored them, as he was charming and very respectful. He was my first real relationship, and thus my first kiss. He knew this, as I hid nothing from him. I was open and honest with him about everything.
You already had a landlady and you hadn't even had been kissed yet? That's surprising. That's very surprising. So you're an adult and you have that limited experience with dating and men.
I informed him that I wanted to wait until my wedding night to have sex, as I informed every guy I dated, and most of them walked away, which was fine by me. Crap, I lost my spot. He said that he respected me for that and for being honest with him about it. If he didn't believe me when I told him, he did after our first kiss. He immediately began calling me untouched. And I hadn't told anyone that I hadn't kissed. I never told anybody. I was made fun enough of for choosing to be a virgin. I didn't want to get made fun of for that as well. But I do wish he was not my first kiss. Things went south on our date to the planetarium. I love the solar system, but I'm not into horoscopes or anything like that.
I understand what you're saying about saving yourself for marriage, and I respect that. I really do. I respect that, and more women should do that. But the fact that you're an adult and you haven't even had a first kiss yet, I mean, you are socially and I think emotionally stunted by that. I mean, that's an extreme to be an adult to the point where you have a landlord and you're cleaning houses, at the point where you're responsible enough to clean houses to reduce your rent, but you never even been kissed. I mean, that's at the point where you're stunting your development. I'm not saying you got to sleep with them. No, I respect that. But there's got to be some kind of dating socialization before that point.
As we entered the planetarium, he walked off in front of me. It was hard for me to keep up, and I was confused by his behavior. He'd never done this before. But when we reached the door, he opened it for me like a gentleman, the gentleman he'd always been. He seemed to be amused by my confusion, however. While we waited in the lobby, his cell phone rang. He excused himself and said it was work-related. He had his own small business. But when he answered it, he yelled, "I told you not to call me at this time." I felt like he was arguing with a girlfriend, which confused me because I was his girlfriend. I was eavesdropping. It was wrong to do so, and I got caught. He stormed into the men's room, and when he came out, he was his charming self again. At the end of the show, we were pleasantly talking when suddenly something caught his interest. And he walked off and began flirting with an attractive young girl. And I mean really attractive. And seriously flirting, not friendly flirting. I stood there like an idiot in shock. I thought I was the woman of his dreams. I was hurt. Then he suddenly seemed to remember me and called me over. He introduced me as his girlfriend, and she looked me up and down as if I was clearly inferior to her. It was humiliating.
That's what women do to each other. This is the experience. Now this is like first time experiences for you as an adult. This is stuff you should have figured out in middle school or in high school when you first start dating. Okay, that women look each other up and down by and large. Not all, most, because it's always a competition. And that could be some of your insecurity as well, knowing that you haven't kissed anybody and that you're saving yourself and you've had other guys you've told just walk out on you. Okay, so I mean, you got your insecurities is at play in this situation as well. The fact that he immediately introduced you as his girlfriend at least is an encouraging sign. Not this is my friend, that'd be the real knife in the chest.
We finally left, and once outside, again he walked off, and I couldn't keep up. I suddenly got mad at myself, thinking, "What's wrong with you?" And I decided to go inside and call for a cab. It was cold and very windy outside, and I figured they wouldn't be able to hear me on the phone. Suddenly he was at my side, all playful and charming, wanting to know where I was going. The conversation, to the best of my memory, went something like this. "To call a cab." "What? Why?" "You clearly don't want to date me anymore." "What gave you that idea?" "Oh, please, I saw you flirting with her, and you walked off and left me behind." "Oh, come on. Look, she's clearly the one you want. It's still early. I'm sure she's still inside. Go to her. You have my blessing." "Don't be like this." "Don't be like what?" "This. You're the only girl I want." "Obviously not. I saw you flirting with her." "I wasn't flirting with her." "Yes, you were. I'm not an idiot. I know what flirting looks like. You were flirting. Go, marry her. May you have my blessing. May you be blessed with many children."
All right, like you're going 0 to nuclear way too quick here. He introduced you as his girlfriend. You guys are in a public place at a planetarium. Sometimes something catches your eye, you walk off. I don't know. I mean, we're only 6 minutes into this, but it seems like you are go off and marry her. I know she's the one you want. Like, these are your own insecurities at play here, right? I mean, this is, like I said, you are 0 to nuclear like that. It is way too quick. Way too quick. The girl you wanted, yet he brought you over and introduced you as his girlfriend.
children. Don't be ridiculous. We reached the door around this point, and he blocked me, preventing me from going inside. Please move. What are you going to do? I'm getting a cab. He smiled. Come on, we both know you can't afford one. I got mad. He was right. This enraged me because now I'd have to talk to my dad. I hated.
Well, how are you going to call Steve? Well, there it is. If you knew you couldn't afford a cab, what were you calling a cab for? It seems almost like it's a performance at this point.
Doing that is my dad would always make me pay handsomely for any favors he gave. My finances are none of your concern, I yelled. Don't be like this. I was just being socially friendly. No, you weren't. I know what flirting looks like, and you weren't just flirting. You were flirting. Please move. Look, even if you get a cab, your car is at my apartment. He'll drop you off at my place. So one way or another, we're going to finish this conversation. He was charmingly arrogant at this point, and I hated him for it. He was right, and I hated him for that too. I conceded, and he walked me to his car and opened the door for me. I got in and buckled myself in so that the seatbelt went over my purse. This way, when I took off my seatbelt, I could jump out of the car as soon as possible. On the ride to his place, I felt like I was in the car with my father. He tried to convince me it was all in my head and I was making a mountain out of a molehill. I simply ignored him as he threw everything at me, including the kitchen sink, to prove to me that I was in the wrong. He went from charming to pleading to insulting and back again. I was deeply hurt. I had fallen in love with him and believed I was a fool for doing so. I guess I was really mad at myself for being so stupid, but I was mostly furious at him for pulling the wool over my eyes, for deceiving me. I wanted out of the...
I mean, I don't know. It does seem like you are kind of making a mountain out of a molehill here. Like, especially because you just met the guy, you really don't know him. You already admitted you're in love with him. This seems like it could be your insecurities. And I'm not saying he did everything right, but you know, you're threatening to call a cab you can't even that you can't pay for. Okay, so like it does seem a bit like you're going through some histrionics here, and the need to like jump out of the car. Like, you guys were in a public place. He saw another woman he knew, talked to her, introduced you as his girlfriend. I look, when I go somewhere with Charlene, or in the past with past girlfriend, like something catches your eye, you're not locked at the hip. You're not chained together. I mean, people see things and figure if you want to go look at something, he wants to go look. I mean, it's not, you don't have to be glued to each other either. I mean, I wasn't there, but how you're describing this seems like, yeah, you might be overreacting a little bit.
Car so badly and to go home. Then when he pulled into his driveway, I thought, he's going slow enough. And I jumped out of the car.
You jumped out of a moving car? Over this?
Yes, while it was still moving. I'm shocked I didn't fall or seriously hurt myself, to be honest. I was wearing heels, which makes what I did even more stupid. It hurt so badly doing that. My ankles were screaming in pain. But I steeled myself, swung around, and I slammed the door, and I gave him the most hateful glare I possibly could. His face was priceless, but not worth the abuse that followed. Understand.
Listen, and it is my job to be honest here and not blow smoke up anybody's ass. But if a woman does that, if Charlene did that now, I'd be like, what is wrong with you? Are you having some kind of mental break? But I mean, if you're doing that early on in dating, that is run. That is red flag for run This woman is crazy. This is not, that is not logical behavior, what you did here. And it does seem like, yeah, you flew right off the handle way too quick.
He'd been a perfect gentleman until this night. I made a beeline for my car, and unfortunately, he beat me to it and prevented me from getting into it. With therapy, I've learned to forgive myself for failing to get into the car first, and learned to let go of the magical thinking that all would have been well and good had I succeeded into getting safely into my car and away from him that night. We continued arguing. He began acting like we'd been dating for years and that I was giving up on a beautiful relationship over a silly misunderstanding. I was deeply confused by this.
Well, if you're saying he's making a big deal because you haven't been dating that long, why are you making a big deal if you haven't been dating that long? It goes both ways here. You're acting like, he violated the sanctity of this long-standing relationship.
As we'd only been dating for about a month and had known each other for about 6 weeks. I didn't find out until after the breakup that he'd been investigating me for a good 2 months and had been pushing my landlady to allow us to meet for about 2 weeks. She was one of his informants, and never told me what he was doing. She always asked me lots of questions that he wanted to know about me. She'd basically given him the blueprints to my heart. Anyway, at some point, he calmed down and became confident. I was surprised to find out that I was in front of his apartment door and my car was far off in the distance. He manipulated me into going inside, mostly because it was cold and I really wasn't properly dressed for it. He said he had a gift for me. I hated the mention of the gift. No guy I've ever dated or went on a date with was good at gifts, or flowers for that matter.
So you're getting gifts and flowers from guys you hadn't even kissed? Like, like you said, this guy is your first kiss, and like you said, the other guy, like you're getting gifts and flowers from guy, and you're rating them, and you hadn't even kissed these guys. And how did he manipulate you into the apartment? Like everything's on him that he's manipulate.
Promised me that if I didn't like the gift, he'd go away and I'd never see him again. And now I felt bad. I told him that it's not that I didn't want him in my life, just not as a boyfriend. I liked him, but we just weren't meant for each other.
You said you were in love with him like 5 minutes ago. You said you were in love with him.
Eventually, he convinced me inside. Before I knew it, he'd taken off my coat and put it in the closet and became really happy. He took something out of the freezer and put it on the counter and seemed to have an epiphany. I know, he said. You're just jealous. What? I'm not. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. He was calm and confident. He walked me into the living room, took me by the arm, and sat me on the couch. He told me I shouldn't be.
I'll be honest with you, I would have come off with the same impression. That's the impression I'm coming off now. It's jealousy. Because it's stunted development. It's jealousy of a developmentally stunted female. You're a grown woman, and this guy is your first kiss. Yeah, you're emotionally stunted. So the jealousy is going to be, it would be a natural reaction. He's not wrong.
I continued to deny this, which he simply ignored. He told me how beautiful I was and was shocked that I didn't believe him. Well, if I'm so beautiful, then why did you flirt? I never finished.
So you don't believe, he's telling you you're beautiful, you don't believe him, but you're telling me you're not jealous. So you don't think you're beautiful. He's talking to another woman who is a friend of his, and you don't think this is jealousy. This is all jealousy because you're emotionally stunted. How you got emotionally stunted is the real question. See, this story is starting in adulthood with a boyfriend, okay, and the real answers is back in your childhood. Is why do you think like this in the first place?
The statement as he started to passionately kiss me. It took my breath away. I had a hard time thinking until I realized his hand had found its way inside my shirt. Shocked, I immediately pushed him away and criticized his behavior. What do you think you're doing? I'm not that type of girl, honestly. I began fixing my shirt, and the next thing I knew, he pinned me down on the couch. I struggled to break free in vain. I began crying. What do you think you're doing? This isn't funny. Knock it off. Let me go. Stop it. I said no. He looked crazy to me. His eyes were on fire. It was terrifying and would only get worse as the evening continued. Okay, here we go. He opened my shirt and, to my horror, took out my breast and delighted in examining it. Put it back, I demanded. He glanced at me and refocused back on it. I'm the first to see this, aren't I? You know it's wrong for you to hide something so beautiful from me, don't you? Stop it, I demanded. This isn't funny. Put it back. I was panicked.
He's played your own insecurities off of you. This is because you're this. It's because he did it, but he targeted you because you're so emotionally stunted. You have no real experience with men until adulthood, and this is what you walk into.
I'm the first to touch it too, aren't I? He said, and smiled as he began caressing it, and I couldn't stop him. He was clearly pleased with himself. I'll be the first too, won't I? Horror and disbelief filled me. Don't you dare, I warned. He ignored me and my cries as he did what he wanted. My screams and pleads excited him. He eventually forced me to enjoy it. It was horrible. I remember my screams and suddenly realizing they were...
He forced you to enjoy it? You either enjoy something or you don't. You can't be forced to enjoy something. I mean, I know that rape victims, you know, they can have an orgasm during rape. It doesn't mean they enjoyed it. I hope that's just a bad choice of words there.
turning into sounds of pleasure, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop him or myself. I finally collapsed motionless with tears streaming down my face. He gently held my face in his hands and wiped the tears from my cheeks. So beautiful, he said. So beautiful. Truly, I've never met...
Yeah, if you're crying at that point, like if you're crying, like yeah, he's getting off on it. That's completely sick. You got to understand you're in this position because you're emotionally stunted with no real experience, and he's played your jealousies and your insecurities off of yourself. If you wanted to get in the car, you should have gotten in the car and drove. You didn't just get manipulated into the apartment. He used your insecurities and your jealousy to get you inside. That's what he did.
met a girl like you. He always found my tears beautiful. He caressed my neck, and I believe he played with my breasts, but when I didn't react, he sighed and walked into the kitchen. Then I laid there, completely motionless. I couldn't really think or feel anything. I was totally empty inside, and I just laid there. When he came back a few moments later, I screamed and sat up and began to fix my shirt. And then I crawled into a ball and stared at him on the couch. He offered me chocolate ice cream. "I got this for you," he said. "It's your favorite." I was confused. I didn't understand. He physically forced me to take the ice cream and the spoon and coerced me into eating it with him. The ice cream was very soft, and I remember wondering how long it had been sitting on the counter to be this soft. It was softer than frozen yogurt. He was being silly and playful, and he got me to laugh. When we were finished eating the ice cream, he took me in his arms and held me. He held me the way I'd always longed for my father to. Oh, sorry. When I was little, I'd wait for my father to come home from work and fall asleep on the couch. I'd then crawl into his arms and make myself comfortable. I'd place my head on his chest and listen to his heart beating and the sound of him breathing, and I longed for him to embrace me back, but he never did. I know something must have happened at some point because I stopped. It wasn't safe for me to do so, but I don't remember what happened. Any rate, he knew this. I told him about this, and he held me the way I'd always wanted my father to. And in that moment, I lost my ever-loving mind. I remember snapping. I'm sorry, my kids are making a racket in the other room. I hope you can't hear them and they're not
No, we can hear them. That's disturbing. It's disturbing, to be honest with you.
interfering too badly. They're just goofing off. Any rate, I remember snapping in my head. After some time, he asked me if I was still mad at him. And I said no, and that I was sorry, and that he was right, and that I was jealous. And I meant it when I said it, too. Man, I lost my mind. He was happy that we'd survived our first argument as a couple, and that our relationship would now be stronger as a result. His happiness became my own, and my whole world revolved around him and his happiness from then on. I truly wonder what that psycho did to me.
Yeah, your father shouldn't be coming into play when you're talking about a boyfriend spousal type of relationship. So I think that's where the root of your jealousy is coming from. It is jealousy, whether you want to admit it or not. It is absolute jealousy. And I feel it's jealousy you had over your father's attention that you now are projecting onto the men in your life.
I was no longer who I once was. I only existed for him. At some point, he said it was time for me to leave, and I begged him to let me stay. Just 5 more minutes. He originally agreed, saying anything for you. He was very happy. But finally, it was getting late, and enough was enough. It was time for me to go.
So you went from jumping out of a moving car to please let me stay in the course of what? An hour? 2 hours? I'm not jealous. I am jealous. I'm not jealous. The issues that he might be a piece of shit. Okay, but the issues are stemming from your insecurities and your jealousies based on your relationship with your father. This is the root of this is all based on your jealousies and the attention you feel you didn't get from your father.
He treated me like a child who didn't want to go to bed.
But to be honest with you, you're acting like a child. I'm sorry, your behaviors are childlike. And yeah, he bought you off with ice cream at the end, like you would with a child. But jumping out of a moving car and jealousy over him talking to another woman in a public place, like, those are not even, those are like adolescent type behaviors. They just are. Me telling you otherwise is blowing smoke up your ass.
Even though it broke my heart, I agreed he was right, that it was best for me to go home. And so I left. I don't understand why I kept returning to see him, even though I didn't want to be abused. I know I thought I could convince him not to, but I was wrong. And at some point, I blocked out all the abuse that had occurred and had continued to occur from that point on. He would abuse me, and I would just forget it ever happened. Hold on a sec. Babe! Be quiet, please. Okay. Sorry about that. Where was I? I blocked out the abuse and continued to do so throughout the relationship. Even now, all these years later, my memory during this time is pretty much Swiss cheese. Some memories have returned, and others have partially returned, and others are just gone. And it's okay. I don't want to remember what I don't remember. At some point, instead of fighting back, I went into what my therapist called survival mode, and I used the fawn response. As a result, the abuse went from being violent to seductive. I eventually saw his abuse as love and welcomed it, wanted it, and to my great disgust, participated in it. He began pressing me to spend the night, and I would refuse, and I would get punished for it. His punishments were usually sexual in nature, and then when he was done punishing me, he would usually reward me for being a good girl by putting up with it. The rewards were sexual in nature too. I got punished for many things, and rewarded for many things too. I didn't want the abuse either way. I didn't want to get punished, and I did not want to be rewarded, and he knew it.
What was the punishment? I mean, I'm unsure what the punishment is. You're saying it's sexual in nature, and the rewards are sexual in nature. So, I mean,
he loved it when I would fight back, and he could use physical force to get me to concede. He was always saying what a challenge I was, and that he loved me because of it, and that I was a hard nut to crack. He said I made his life interesting, and he loved a good challenge. I didn't understand what he meant at the time, but now I do. I have to forgive myself for being stupid and for trusting him. I tried to break up with him a second time when he invited me to a party that he was having. It was just a little get-together, according to him. And I told him that I wish he'd give me a heads up so I could ask for the day off, so I could be there, or at least be on time. But now there was a good chance I could be late, possibly an hour or more, depending on how the day went at work. He said not to worry, as it wasn't anything important. It was just a get-together with friends. The day came and Murphy's Law was in effect big time. I was beyond stressed out, and to be honest, he had been sleep depriving me. And as much What? I can't read what I wrote. Hold on. He was sleep depriving me. And I might have gotten done at work earlier if I wasn't so tired. But I digress. Everything went wrong. And it went wrong to the worst case scenario it possibly could. I texted him, and he said it was fine, not to worry about it. But by the time I made it to his apartment, he'd clearly told everyone to leave before I got there. He was furious at me and was confused. And I was confused, and rightly so. He ended up giving me the silent treatment, just like my dad did, and I became deeply hurt and angry and furious. I finally grabbed my purse and walked to the front door. I stopped, turned around to tell him how I felt. You know, if I'd known you were going to treat me like this, I never would have come. You have no idea what a horrible day I've had. Absolutely everything went wrong, I yelled. Everything. He continued to ignore me and eat while watching TV. I fumed. I'm leaving, and when you decide to grow up, call me. I turned to open the door, and he was there. He grabbed my wrist and swung me around to face him. He was excited and even aroused, to my shock. He held me close and had his hand up behind my head, holding it in place, so I had to look at him. His eyes were on fire. I was too angry at the time to realize the danger I was in. He made a comment as to how beautiful the fire in my eyes were and forced me to kiss him. As hard as I tried, I couldn't break free. I tried to tell him that I was mad at him, but to my horror, he was bringing me to the couch, and I knew what was coming. It's strange to me at the time that since I had blocked out all the abuse, and yet I knew what was coming. I panicked and tried harder to break free, but it was useless. My cries and screams and demands went ignored as I got severely punished. When I finally stopped fighting back and consented, he stopped, caressed my face, and said, "That's my girl." And I got rewarded above and beyond anything I'd received prior. He exhausted me on the couch. He fixed me up, fixed up my blouse, and went into the kitchen. I struggled to stay awake. I was too upset to cry. I'd laid there and wondered what was wrong with me. How could I love someone so much whose company I didn't like? Why couldn't I break up with him? Why couldn't I just leave?
What is the I mean, you are in a relationship with him, okay? So I'm unclear exactly. I won't. Yeah, I get it. No means no. It does. But what is what is the limits of this relationship you're in with him? Like, I don't know. What is he doing on the couch? Because what you explained at the beginning with him, I mean, basically feeling you up. I mean, that's stuff that happens in eighth grade. So I'm like, I'm unclear. Are you? Nobody should be able to be touched if they don't want to be touched. But you're also in a relationship with this guy. So like, what is it? It's like it's almost like sex is this, or any type of intimacy is just this weapon to be used both ways. I don't know here.
Leave. What was wrong with me? As I pondered these questions, sleep began to overtake me. Fear gripped me. I believed that if I fell asleep, I'd wake up and find him raping me. So I told myself to stay awake. I told myself over and over and over again as my lids became heavier and heavier.
had that happened before? I mean, are we at this point where he's raped you before?
Heavier. I think I may have dozed off for a moment or two. I'm truly unsure. I sensed him next to me and opened my eyes. We were face to face and our eyes were locked, and he smiled. I'm so glad you feel comfortable enough to sleep in my place. I was afraid to speak. He sat on the couch and placed me on his lap. I laid there like a rag doll. You'd never pretend with me, would you? He said. What are you talking about? Pretend what? I said. I was so tired. A girl like you wouldn't know how to fake it, would you? Fake what? What are you talking about? Looking back, I feel so stupid by this. Hold on a second. Hold on, I'm sorry. Okay, well, give it to Daddy, okay? Give it to Daddy, please. Go, please. Thank you. Yes, you can talk to your aunt. Go ahead. Sorry. Fake what? What are you going on about? I was tired and confused. Looking back, it's completely obvious. His eyes lit up as he looked at me, and he bit his bottom lip. He began to gently stroke me all over in an erotic manner. What are you doing? I began to cry and scream and tried to get away.
But he's your boyfriend. Like, that's what this is the hard part for me, because you are dating this guy. You are coming over. Like, do you expect him not to touch you ever? I don't. I don't understand. Like, it's like, is he not allowed to touch you ever? Is he not allowed to kiss you? Like, what is this? Like, everything is trauma. If he tries to touch you or tries to be intimate with you, he's gonna rape you. I mean,
but he wrapped his arms around me tightly, and he held me up against his body. I was trying desperately to get away.
but you're dating him. That's like.
I then saw his hand glide up the inside of my leg, and I immediately knew what was coming. I placed my hand over my private in an attempt to stop him and yelled no, but it was all in vain. He laughed at my screams and cries as I tried to get away and stop him, but his grip only strengthened. It's odd remembering this now, as I remember it in two different ways. I remember being held and struggling to get away, but I also remember it as if I watched it from across the room. He eventually stopped with a sigh and a chuckle and said, "Fine, you win." When he stopped, I fell into his lap just as before, but I felt like a small, helpless child that would never get away.
This almost seems like a game you both are playing, some sort of fantasy. And I've heard of them before, like these type of rape fantasy type of situations on his end, on your end. The whole thing just seems weird. And you're grown, you're adults, and yeah, nobody should be touched the way they don't, in a way that they don't want to be touched. But this is a guy you're dating, and it's like he can never touch you. He can't show you any intimacy without there being some kind of, oh my god, I'm being assaulted, I'm being manipulated, I'm blacking out, I can't remember. I'm not saying he's right, but you're in a relationship. Like, what are the parameters of this relationship? What are the rules of this relationship? Are you guys supposed to just be passing notes back and forth? Do you like me? Check yes, check no. This is a grown man with his own place. This is the type of interactions you're supposed to go through at 14, at 13, 14, 15, where you're working stuff out. Doesn't make them right. But you're basically trying to have an adult relationship with the mentality of a 13-year-old who's got obvious daddy issues, who's trying to find a father figure in a boyfriend. You're never going to find a father figure in a spouse because nobody wants to really bang their dad unless you really got problems. And you're seeing this guy more as a father figure, and he's seeing you as a girlfriend.
I felt so small and alone. I believed the only way to end this was for him to let me go, because I couldn't get away on my own. Please, I said quietly. Please what? Please let me go. Never, he said, with confidence as my heart sank and all hope was gone. You are my most precious treasure. He looked at me lovingly. How blessed am I to find someone like you, pure, innocent, and untouched virgin. My heart sank with the exception of virgin.
So you're still a virgin at this point. So what is this punishment and these rewards if at this point you're still a virgin? You're talking about, you're talking about teenage handsy stuff, I guess. And and this is an adult man. Like what? Not, and I'm not saying that anybody should force themselves on you. Of course not. But this isn't out of the ordinary that a man you're in a relationship wants to be intimate, wants to touch you, wants to kiss you. No, it's not. It's not out of the ordinary.
As I was none of those things anymore.
So you're not a virgin anymore at this point. Hold on. Back it up.
In an attempt to stop him and yelled no, but it was all in vain. He laughed at my screams and cries as I tried to get away and stop him. But his grip only strengthened. It's odd remembering this now, as I remember it in two different ways. I remember being held and struggling to get away, but I also remember it as if I watched it from across the room. He eventually stopped with a sigh and a chuckle and said, "Fine, you win." When he stopped, I fell into his lap just as before, but I felt like a small, helpless child that would never get away. I felt so small and alone. I believed the only way to end this was for him to let me go, because I couldn't get away on my own. Please, I said quietly. Please what? Please let me go. Never, he said, with confidence as my heart sank and all hope was gone. You are my most precious treasure. He looked at me lovingly. How blessed am I to find someone like you, pure, innocent, and untouched virgin. My heart sank with the exception of virgin, as I was none of those things anymore. He cradled my face.
My heart sank with the exception of virgin because I was none of those things anymore. So you are still a virgin.
In his hands and gently lifted it to meet his. I'm going to make you the happiest woman in the world, he said as he kissed me. I'm going to make you so happy that you're never going to want to leave me. He had our foreheads and noses touching. If I'd been happy, it would have been a beautiful and intimate moment, but I felt trapped. He went on to talk about us being the next it couple, his face lost in a dream. I didn't want to be an it couple. To this day, I hate that term. The last thing I remember is staring at the 2 ice cream containers on the coffee table. When this memory returned, I wanted to die. I lost my mind screaming and crying as I relived it in my mind. How could he do that to me? Later in that week, after the incident, when I got off of work early, my ex and his friend were finishing up the job at my landlady's house. My ex seemed beside himself that I'd come home early. He introduced me to his friend, who seemed alarmed at my presence. I immediately could tell he was a good person, of noble character, and I felt completely safe with him. My ex had to go inside to finish with the paperwork and the payments with my landlady. He clearly didn't want to leave me alone with his friend, but he had to. His friend was a complete gentleman and asked if I was okay and if he was treating me right. I said that my ex-boyfriend was. My abusive memories, although they were gone, so I believed what I was saying was true. But I know my gut told me I was lying. It was a confusing moment. When my ex came back, he seemed uncomfortable, and I could feel the testosterone rising, and I knew a fight between the two of them was coming. I excused myself, and when I got to the corner of the house, I turned and waved, and they waved back. And I thought, oh yeah, words are going to fly. His friend was concerned about me, and I didn't understand why. I passed the corner of the house and waited a few moments. And when I was sure they couldn't see me anymore, I carefully peeked over the side of the house to see for myself. And sure enough, a heated argument had ensued. His friend was beyond furious as he pointed in the direction that I had just walked. My ex seemed unfazed, as if his friend was overreacting, and it wasn't that big of a deal. I decided it best to leave before they realized I was watching. When his friend left, he came to pay me a visit one last time at my apartment. Sad that his work was done and that he wouldn't get the chance to see me every day. I inquired about the argument. He got bashful and said, "Oh, you saw that, did you?" And I said yes. And he said that his friend was just mad that he was dating someone as beautiful as me. I laughed at the blatant lie and said, seriously, why? Why was he angry? He gave me some BS about our age difference. He told me that we were 13 years apart, but later on I found that we were actually 16. I let the conversation.
You and this guy are 16 years apart. No, yeah, you're after a daddy figure. You're after a daddy figure, and he's looking to smash.
Drop, believing I'd eventually figure it out. Today I'm convinced he was still dating his previous girlfriend, and his friend was furious about it. I was also seriously sleep deprived, and he may have noticed and been concerned about that too.
What makes you think his friend? Where do you get that from? I don't know. I think you're making assumptions here. I think it might have more to do with the age difference.
At any rate, after that, my ex planned to celebrate, quote-unquote, us about 2 weeks later. I don't really remember what occurred during those 2 weeks, but everything seemed to be wonderful, and I didn't want to ruin it. I also thought it odd to celebrate us at the 2.5-week mark, and not the 3rd month mark. But he dismissed my concerns, as I clearly didn't understand.
You wanted to celebrate at 2.5 weeks? Again, that's little girl stuff. You're dating, and now you're dating, and find out you're dating somebody 16 years older than you, and you're on some little. You want to have a 2.5 week anniversary? Is that what I'm getting here? Yeah, he was probably like yelling at him, his friend, saying, "Yeah, you're dating a mental child here." That's what probably the argument was about.
But again, why was the 2.5-month mark so important? He was adamant we celebrated then. Anyway, nothing from this point could upset him, and it was wonderful. Confusing, but wonderful. To this day, I still can't believe the amount of damage that man did to me. Any rate, the day of the special celebration of us arrived. While I was getting ready, I felt my gut screaming at me not to go. The scream got louder and louder. He's going to rape you. He's planning on raping you. I tried to ignore this, believing that he loved me and that he would never do that. But my gut wouldn't stop screaming. I finally decided to change my outfit in order to calm my gut down. I'm an idiot, I swear. Okay. I decided to make it harder for him to have sex with me, believing that, he might get carried away, but not believing that he would actually rape me. So what I was planning to do would slow him down and make it more difficult for him to get my pants off. Under normal circumstances, I would have canceled the date and I never would have gone. But I was clearly not in my right mind. I had gained weight while dating him. Not a lot, but I had gained enough weight to go up a pant size. I had begun biting my nails again, and other bad habits I had stopped doing. So I knew something was going on with me, and I blamed everything in my life except him. At any rate, I had a cute pair of sweatpants. They were like yoga pants that, they flared at the bottom, but they went all the way up to my waist, and they had a long string there. I made the string as tight as I could around my waist, and bowed it, and knotted the bow, and then I knotted it all the way down. And then I put a beautiful long blouse on, a blouse that was long enough to cover the knots. When I arrived at his apartment, he was eerily happy to see me. He was walking around on cloud 9, and it felt like it did in the very beginning of our relationship.
The beginning of the relationship, we were on a date at the planetarium and you were jumping out of the car. What are you talking about? What beginning of the relationship? This relationship has been jealousy from day one.
And even though I was beginning to feel very uncomfortable, I decided not to let anything ruin his happiness. I want to show you something. I got you. He was very excited to give me a toothbrush. A toothbrush, I said, very confused. I was expecting flowers, not a toothbrush. What kind of gift is that? He brought me into his bathroom. Look, I made space for your stuff on my counter. And he placed the toothbrush in the toothbrush holder. He acted like it was the greatest treasure in the entire world.
See, you don't get it. You don't get it. He's trying to have an adult relationship with you, and you are in middle school. But yet you want flowers and princess. You want princess treatment, okay? But he can't touch you. And again, I understand saving yourself for marriage and all, but he can't touch you. He can't. Everything he does is a manipulation. And now the gifts aren't good enough. This man is 16 years older than you. And again, I have no problem with you saving yourself for marriage. None. But there is zero intimacy. What does this guy get out of this relationship at this point? Explain it to me. And again, I think he's playing some kind of daddy rape fantasy, try to unlock the code here as well. But you have very, very, very unrealistic expectations at this point in dating, in men, in a lot of it.
He even moved the shower curtain to show me that he made space in the shower for me to leave my shampoo and stuff there. I'm not going to spend the night here. I'm not sleeping at your apartment. I've told you this. You know this. He seemed unconcerned and a bit disappointed that I wasn't happy about it, and again made some comment about me being a hard nut to crack. He shrugged it off and escorted me to his bedroom, convinced I'd be really happy. At first, I refused to go into his room. It always bothered me, and I never understood why, as it was just a bedroom. It was a typical guy's room. I used to clean houses, so I've seen many men's rooms. It was just a typical men's room. My refusal to enter his room seemed to amuse him. It took some coaxing, but I briefly entered it. He had empty drawers and a section of his closet for me. I didn't want to hurt his feelings, but I gently put my foot down. I'm not going to spend the night here or sleep here.
That's
You
not
know
what he
this.
was. That's not what he was doing. That's not. See, everything to you is sex. He's showing you you can move in here. He's showing you have a place in my home. Don't you want to get married? Isn't that what the point of all this was? You were saving yourself for marriage. What he was doing is a very, very common step that men will do when they're trying to display they want a long-term relationship, that you can move in here. Everything to you is about, it's almost like you're enjoying withholding it from him. That's your control, is you withholding it from him. And everything he does now is now a ruse to somehow get in your pants. Whereas, like, that's a huge thing with single men. Like, don't leave a toothbrush, don't leave anything in the closet. No, he's doing the opposite. And you're saying you're trying to save yourself for marriage, and what he's showing you is that, hey, maybe there's a future here, okay, for you. You have a place in my home. So this isn't just some kind of bang shack. But you're emotionally stunted. This is the first guy you ever kissed, and he's 16 years older than you. This is an adult trying to date a 13-year-old. I mean, that's just what it is. And you might not like that, but that is exactly what's going on here.
Again, he was a bit disappointed and talked about summer coming and being on his boat and us living 45 minutes apart. It would be easier for me if I already had clothes to change into at his place, and even to use the shower. He even promised that he wouldn't mess with my underwear. Uh-huh, I said, not truly believing him. But after a while I told him I'd think about it, and he was elated. The rest of the date went pretty well, but I didn't like how I'd catch him looking at me from time to time.
He's your boyfriend. He's not supposed to look at you? Now he can't even look at you? Really? Because I haven't heard anything. Like, I get it. The first night, he was feeling you up, and you were crying, and like as soon as the crying comes out, yeah, then I'm like, all right, you know what? You're not ready for any of this. Have a nice day. I would have ended it all right there. So he's obviously getting off on the challenge, on the chase here. But at the same time, he can't even look at you.
When I questioned him about it, he would say, what? A man can't admire his girlfriend's beauty? I felt my eyebrows go up. Something was going on.
No, yeah, something's going on with you. Like, honestly, like, you found a guy that like is kind of into it. Most guys, like you said, when you said like bye, most guys bye, have a nice life, good luck with all of that, good luck with all. Now I can't even look at you, I can't touch you, I can't kiss you, I can't look at you, I can't invite you into my house, let you keep a toothbrush, keep stuff here, put a space in, none of it. But you're saving yourself for marriage. You didn't want a father, you didn't want a boyfriend, you didn't want a husband, you wanted your daddy. And he wanted a girlfriend, he wanted a young girlfriend. You're on two different planes exactly. Completely.
Dinner was pleasant, and afterwards we went into the living room. Again, the way he looked at me was setting off alarm bells. I felt like he was looking at me. I felt like he was taking me all in and making a mental note of me of how I looked in this moment, savoring it as
So
if it was for
what?
the last time.
That's you see, and again, that's your jealousy and insecurity. Now he's looking at me for the last time as if what? He's never going to talk to you. Like you don't want to break up with him. You just don't want him to touch you but you want gifts, you want flowers, you want him to buy you nice things, but you don't want him to touch you, you don't want him to kiss you, you don't want to have sex with him, you don't want anything in his house, and you don't want him looking at you. What is he getting out of this relationship exactly?
What? I finally asked. Suddenly he stood up and faced me, grabbed me at my waist, raised me over his head, and placed me on his shoulders, laughing as he brought me throughout his apartment. I was scared and confused. What was he doing? What was going on? Until I realized we were entering his bedroom. I panicked and tried to grab the doorway. He then threw me across the bedroom. I still remember being airborne. I watched him remove his shirt and do a run jump to be on top of me when I landed on the bed. His speed and agility was something to behold. He pinned my legs down, and before I could utter a single word or process what was happening, he took my shirt and bra off over my head and pinned my wrists in place. He came down on top of me and put his mouth on top of mine. And I began screaming into his mouth as reality set in. I struggled, but could only move my head and feet. I tried biting him a couple of times but failed, and it only made him laugh. And as I swerved my head from side to side, he was flexible enough to he just kept doing what he was doing. But his eyes were on fire. Suddenly I realized he was passionately kissing me, and he was starting to get me highly aroused.
See, he thinks this is your game. He thinks this is your game. And part of me, I don't know. Part of me kind of thinks it might be too. Because how does he get your shirt and your bra over your head? Off over your head like that? Did he rip it? Had he pulled a. Listen, I've taken off a lot of bras in my day. I have never, ever seen one come up over a girl's head. Maybe it's possible, but.
He knew how to touch me and where. Once he had got me pinned into place, he became gentle and tender and affectionate, and was doing whatever he could to pleasure me. I realized he intended for me to enjoy being raped by him. I soon felt him try to get my pants off, and in any moment of relief at his surprise, quickly disintegrated as he once again became amused and began to slowly unknot my pants. There were no words to describe the level of fear and hatred at myself for being so stupid. I kept thinking, this isn't happening. This isn't happening. And in my mind, I kept begging, please, please, please don't do this. I love you. Please don't do this. I kept thinking, this can't be. This is not how rape is supposed to go. There's supposed to be fighting and bruising and black eyes and broken noses and a busted lip and cracked ribs. It's supposed to be painful and violent, not gentle and pleasurable. I was becoming so aroused that it was hard to think. I suddenly realized with horror that once he got my pants off, I'd enjoy being raped by him. I didn't want to be there when it happened. I found myself trying to find a place to hide in my head. It felt like I ripped a hole in my mind and I tried to hide in the hole, waiting for it to be over. I suddenly felt his emotion shift from excitement to confusion. And then he was enraged. Then he was annoyed and frustrated and finally rage as he realized he couldn't get my pants off. And he began to focus solely on trying to pull them off. And I just laid there as he flopped me around on his bed, desperately trying to get my pants off, getting angrier and angrier. He finally sat up and stared at me, a look of disbelief on his face. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I'm sorry. He said as he got off me and backed away. I just stared at him, and I wondered if I should cover my...
Why are you laughing there? Because you couldn't get your pants off? Look, it sounds horrible. But on the other end, like, I'm still 50-50 on whether you're playing a game with him. And the kind of the laughing at the frustration that he can't get your pants off, like it seems like it's a game to you too.
myself. I didn't want to anger him any more than he clearly was, so I chose not to. "All I want to do is love you. Why won't you let me love you?" He was clearly beside himself. I stared, unable to respond, as I thought, but rape isn't love. He then made comments that if I only knew how hot I was, I'd want to have sex with him. Or, in an attempt to make me feel sorry for him, because if he was better looking, then I'd have sex with him. And this had nothing to do with anything as far as I was concerned. Besides, if that was true, I never would have dated him to begin with. He wasn't ugly, but he wasn't, gorgeous either. He was, average. "Don't you know what your beauty does to me?" he cried. "It torments me." Sorry, he's so insane. "It torments me. It haunts me in my..."
I think you're letting your mask slip a little bit here. I think you're letting your mask, you're cackling here. Okay, at his frustration, which is making me think that this is the point of the entire exercise with with him and probably other men. Because you said as this is happening, you're getting excited. So you're obviously giving him some sort of signs here. And in the past, like I said, this seems like that this is some kind of role-playing sex fantasy, forced sex fantasy that's going on both ends here. And you just say, he's all right. I mean, he's not the best looking thing in the world. So what are you dating him for? Where is this relationship supposed to be going? He can't kiss you. He can't touch you. He can't look at you. You want to save yourself. But yet, at the same time, there's mixed signals going back and forth. And again, I am not advocating forcing yourself on anybody. Absolutely not. The whole force is weird. The crying, the second you're crying, that somebody says, "I'm trying to kiss you or touch you," like that's it. We're done. We're done. We're done. No, we're done. You got problems. You're not emotionally ready. You're an emotional child. So he's trying to crack this code, and I think you're messing with him. I really do at this point. But you want gifts, you want anniversaries, you want all of that. What is he getting out of this relationship? What? Sex aside, he's getting no personal intimacy whatsoever, and that doesn't have to be sexual. Okay? Are you doing anything outside of that? I mean, it's like, are you bringing food? Are you cooking? Are you clean? Like what? What is he getting gifts? Like what? What is he getting out of this relationship? And what are you supposed to be getting out of this relationship? What is the point of this relationship in the first place? Other than he's 16 years older than you and he held you like you wanted your father to hold you. So who are you really punishing by all this? Him or your father? Your problem's not this guy. Your problem is your relationship with your father.
Dreams. I'm not sure, but a small chuckle may have emerged from me as I thought, dude, I'm nowhere near that beautiful. He became enraged and charged the bed, fist held high. I braced myself, believing he was going to beat the crap out of me. But he stopped and appeared to be horrified at himself for what he almost did. His arms dropped to his sides as he picked up his shirt and left the room a defeated man. I got myself dressed and was surprised to see that not a single mark was on me. My wrists weren't even red. They weren't even pink. Nothing hurt. It was as if the whole thing had never happened.
Did it? Did it happen? Then no marks, not a scratch, nothing. Nothing. He's picking you up over his shoulder, you're holding on, he's ripping your shirt off, he's ripping your bra off over your head.
I believed our relationship was over, and I was fine with that. I braced myself for the firestorm of rage as he'd throw me out and demand I'd never return. However,
but you don't want him to throw you out and break it off with you. He's just supposed to put up with all this. Not being able to touch you, not being able to look at you, not being able to kiss you. You want to save yourself for marriage, but yet he's giving you an olive branch of, you could leave your toothbrush here, you leave your clothes here, showing you like, hey, maybe marriage, and then you're rejecting it outright. And then you laugh at him. And you're laughing about it now. Right now, you haven't been raped. You haven't been raped. You haven't been assaulted. You haven't been. This is all up here. It's all in your head right now because of your jealousy, because you are emotionally stunted. He's dating a 13-year-old, and you're dating probably somebody if he's 16 years old, I'd say even if you're 21, 22 at this point. So what is he, late 30s, early 40s?
that's not what happened. I left his room, and there he was with a firm grip on my purse and a crazy look on his face. Oh crap, I thought. His eyes blackened at the sight of me, and his face contorted and shifted, and he ended up looking demon-possessed.
But he never actually does anything demon-like.
I knew he hated me. I'd seen my father give my mother that same look, and my baby brother had given me that look too. Extreme violence would come my way if I didn't play my cards right. The most evilest grin I'd ever seen in my life emerged on his face.
Everything about him is evil, contorted, his eyes, every time. But then he never actually does anything. I'll pick you up and take your shirt off.
As his property, and he planned on taking my virginity. He'd always wanted it, and now he intended to take it. He had originally intended to be nice about taking it, but now he was going to punish me when he took it. I could see him fantasize about taking control and seeing me fight back.
This is you. This is you. And I don't know where this ends up, but you know what he's thinking. You know what he's planning. Like, come on here.
Or have me run around in fear as he chased me, and the pleasure it gave him. Horror filled me as I began to pray and pray hard. I begged God to forgive me. I should have listened to the warnings. I begged him to get me away from that man. I felt a calm come over me, and I felt the voice in my gut say, if you want to leave here with your virginity intact, you must do exactly as I say. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying I heard the voice of God or anything like that, but I felt him there, guiding me and protecting me. And I wish I'd called out to him sooner. And I have to take responsibility for not doing that, for not, calling out for help sooner. I know he'd been there the whole time. I don't understand why he allowed what he allowed, or why he allows what he allows. But I do know that he cares. Anyway, I agreed with the feeling in my gut, the voice, whatever. And I knew that I had to convince him that I still loved him, and that if he gave me time to think about it, I would have sex with him. And I prayed hard because I'm a terrible liar. Not as bad as my mom, but I'm pretty up there. I took a deep breath. I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I care about you. You're very special to me, and I don't want to lose you. Please forgive me. I'm scared. I've never done this before. Now that I know how you feel, can I have time to think about this? I stopped talking as I didn't want to babble, and I chose to let my words sink in and see what would happen. I could see him think about it, and his face slowly changed back to that of my loving boyfriend. My heart broke in that moment as I realized it was all a lie. My boyfriend never existed. And I was now trapped in an apartment with a man I didn't know who wanted to rape me. He put my purse on the table and approached me.
He doesn't want to rape, he wanted to have sex. He's a grown-ass man. You're a grown woman. That's not rape. He wants to be intimate with you. And you give him nothing. You're giving him everything as a sexual assault. Every time he looks at you, he's planning on raping you. It's not. It's not. It's not unnatural. It's not wrong for a guy want to have sex with his girlfriend. I'm sorry. And if you don't want that, then he should have the right to say, I want to end this. And that's not manipulating you into having sex. It's like, I have needs. This is what I want out of a relationship. And if you want something different, it's not rape. And if he's trying to convince you otherwise because he's getting mixed signals, that's not rape. Throwing that word around, okay, is abhorrent if it doesn't apply. And I'm not, from what I've heard thus far, it does not apply. You are immature and jealous. And at the same time, you kind of like torquing this guy around. You let your mask slip with your little cackles here. You want him chasing you around. Like, I think I don't want to, you like it. You like him chasing you around for it. But you don't want him to give up on the cheese. You want him in an endless maze, chasing cheese he's never going to get. Or the famous carrot at the end of the stick. Just keep clomping along. What is your end game with this guy here? Now, obviously, you're married because you have kids and you said husband here. So obviously, somebody was good enough for you to marry.
Gently, and approached me and gently smiled. He took me in his arms and gently held my face in his hands and caressed it. I shut my eyes for fear that he'd see the truth. To the best of my knowledge, what occurred next lasted approximately 4 to 4.5 hours. He had disabled all the clocks in his apartment, so I can't be sure what time this started or what time it ended. But based on other things going on at the time, I'm assuming it was approximately 4 to 4.5 hours. Anyway,
How do you disable every clock? I mean, some of these things are digital. Why? Why would he disable clocks?
He kissed me passionately, so much so that it took my breath away and my knees gave. If he'd not been holding on to me so tightly, I would have collapsed on the floor. He was touching and caressing me ever so lovingly, and was kissing me very passionately. "Open your eyes and look at me," he whispered. I did, and I was surrounded by the feelings of love. It engulfed me. It cocooned me. The world vanished as he smiled at me. There was no past or future. There was just the here and now.
That's supposed to happen when you care about someone. Those aren't bad things.
He kissed me, and I was on a cloud. Everything was wonderful. I found myself back in his bedroom, and when I saw his bed, the memories came flooding back in a tidal wave.
You found yourself. You just find your, like you're constantly blacking out, knees buckling, don't know, and now here you're back in his bedroom again. You're a grown woman. He's a grown man. He's 16 years older than you. This isn't out of the order. This isn't him wanting to be intimate is not crazy. It isn't. You are acting like a 13-year-old. You really are here.
I screamed and turned to run, only to be face to face with him. I hugged him, shaking.
And this is on him. Like, I mean, I wouldn't be putting like, go, because this is where accusations come. Like, go. He must have liked you on some level, or it's just about the art of the chase with him. But nothing's worth this. Nothing.
And buried my face in his chest. I wanted him to rescue me. He was a bit annoyed, but he held me close and escorted me out of his room. He held me so closely that it was hard to walk. He sat me on the couch and had me facing him, and he had a look of sadness and concern in his eyes. "You know I'd never hurt you, right?" I nodded. "You know that you're precious to me, right?" Again I nodded. He was being very gentle and affectionate with me. He then chose to walk to the TV and get the remote. I saw the hatred for me coming out of the corner of his eyes. That was close, I thought.
You want to see what you want to see with this guy. Like, you need this. You need this drama with him. You need it. You need him to chase it. You need him to hate. Like,
I didn't know he could do that. I have to be more careful. I have to be more alert. I knew he was testing me. I had to be a good girl, a very good girl. He had to be the one to let me leave. Any attempt on my part would get me raped, and I knew it would be a violent rape at that. It's strange that when I caught him looking at me through the corner of his eye, I saw hate. But when he looked at me directly, I saw incredible love. Anyway, we ended up cuddling on the couch, as always. My heart began to break as I realized this would be our last time together. This would be the last time he would hold me like this. I took his hand in mine and was fascinated that a hand so big and strong that had once made me feel safe now terrified me.
when did it make you feel safe? Wait, that's bullshit. When did that hand ever? Dude, this has started from the planetarium that night. Like, when did this hand make you feel safe? When? This is total bullshit. This is role-playing fantasy that you're giving me here. It is. And I'm kind of now I'm kind of convinced that this is all some kind of role-playing rape fantasy that's going on both ends. You want to be, you want that idea that somebody wants you so bad that they're going to take it from you. Yes. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And this has been going on now. And you sent me an hour and this is a sponsorship too. Oh my god. I'm sorry. Like I don't know until I listen. Because these sponsorships are supposed to be for somebody who are actually in trouble. We're this far in. Got another 35 minutes of this. And how long am I into this already? An hour and a half already recorded. Sorry, everybody. Got to finish it now.
I tried to make myself enjoy the moment, as it would help.
You're not making yourself enjoy. You're enjoying it. You're enjoying the whole thing. I'm sorry. You're enjoying the whole thing. Okay? And this is how you play with guys like that and you play with the wrong one. This is how you actually get hurt. Because you're playing a game here with this dude. You absolutely are. You absolutely played a game with this guy. I don't know how this ends or where this goes. Okay? But you're put at this point, you have put yourself in this situation because now you're just fucking with this dude. He can't even look at you and he's plotting a rape. Well, he's looking at me side-eyed, so he wants to rape me. But when he looks at me fed on, it's all loving. I mean, where do you get this from? You have zero experience with dating. You haven't even kissed the dude up until this point, yet you know what you have no clue. You don't have the basis for it. You're signing all of these horrid things on this guy because he wants to be intimate with you, okay, in his 30s or 40s.
I let myself enjoy the moment, as it would help to convince him that I would come back. I wouldn't let myself cry, for fear that he'd know what I was doing. I was safe in this moment as long as I was good. I felt my heart ripping in two. I loved him and wanted to stay, but the voice in my gut kept saying, he doesn't love you. You don't try to rape the one you love. These words pierced my heart. I desperately wanted to believe that he loved me as much as I loved him.
This is, you want the, I'm convinced like you want this. This, constantly, this guy constantly having to defend himself from being a rape. Like, come on. And it's on him. He should have just dumped you on the first night. Should have been like, bye. When you started acting the way you were acting at the planetarium, he should have just called you a cab himself and been like, go. This is how it ends. Go, because you're a giant red flag. You're a giant red flag. Yes, it is very noble to want to save yourself for marriage. What you are doing here is you are playing with this guy. That is not what you're doing. It's just trying to save yourself for marriage.
But I knew he didn't. I tried to forget that this was goodbye, as I wanted to cherish the moment. He asked if I wanted to watch a movie, and he let me pick one. I picked a movie that I knew I would dislike. He was surprised by my choice, but I stated that I had seen the other movies.
And if he and wait a minute, if he disabled all the clocks, you don't have the time on your phone. You don't have the watch. Like, you have no other way to tell what time it is.
And that I hadn't seen that one yet. But it was okay if he chose to watch one of the other ones. And I prayed about it, as I desperately did not want to watch the other movies, as I did not want those movies to be associated with him. He agreed, and we watched the horrible movie. It was worse than I thought it would be. Afterwards, we watched a bunch of TV shows, but I don't remember what they were. I just shut my eyes and chose to enjoy being held by him as I knew it would be our last time. Suddenly, and I do mean suddenly, he stood up and told me he'd given it a lot of thought and that it was best for me to leave. I felt cold.
Of course, now you feel cold. Because basically you got to the point where, you know what, I'm sick of your shit. Go. Just go. If you want to go, go. Go.
You think I should go? Yes, he said. Joy filled me. I can leave. I can finally go home. And a loud no thundered inside of me. He mustn't know you're happy about this. He mustn't know you want to leave. If he knows, he'll rape you, and it will be violent. Horror filled me as reality set in. At that moment, he turned around and saw the look of horror on my face, and it pleased him. Thank God he had not said that to my face.
It pleased him because he thinks that you still want a relationship. If you just would have been happy, he would have been fine. She actually wants to leave. He would have let you go. He's not like he had plenty of opportunity. What he needs the perfect scenario to rape you is this is not stable thinking. It isn't.
Are you sure? I said. Yes. He suddenly seemed saddened by his decision. I don't want to leave if you're still mad at me. I'm not mad at you. Bullcrap, I thought.
Oh, I thought you just wanted to get out of there, but it's got to be like, oh, you got to be upset, or I got to be like, what the hell? You are exhausting. You're exhausting. You're exhausting.
Are you sure you're not mad? Yes, but I think it's best for you to leave. Are you sure? Yes, I believe this is the best. Well, if you think it's the best, I do. Okay then, I said, I'll go. But if you change your mind, then I'll stay, and we'll work this out.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
He nodded. I could tell my words pleased him. He began to act strangely with my purse. At the time, I thought, what are you doing? Looking back, I laugh and think, do you want a room? If you want, you can empty my purse and give me all the contents and I'll leave you guys alone. He was being really weird with the purse. He escorted me to my car. It was very hard to walk as he was holding me very closely. When we reached my car, he asked me if I was mad at him. No, and it was an honest answer, as mad didn't even come close to how I felt at that point. Why would I be mad at you? So you understand what happened in there? Yes. Being outside gave me clarity and a renewed sense of fear, as I knew that if I screwed up now, it would be bad. It would be very, very bad. He dragged me back inside, and I don't even want to think what would have happened. He took me into his arms yet again, and if I thought the seduction he used inside the apartment was intense, it paled in comparison to what happened by the car. I could feel every pore in his body beg me to go inside the apartment with him and have sex. Every kiss, every caress, everything came with the promise of incredible sex with him if I went back inside. It was hard to think and hard to focus. But the thought entered my mind, he doesn't love you. He never loved you. If he did, he wouldn't be doing this. He would rather rape you than marry you. The words were a dagger to my heart. If I had sex with him, he'd just throw me away like yesterday.
What words? Those are your thoughts. Those are no words. Those are thoughts in your own head.
Yesterday's trash. I wanted to believe. I wanted to believe in the illusion he'd created for me. But he didn't love me. The war inside me was real. I'm sorry. The war inside me was real. Anger began to build. How could he do this? He never wanted me. He just wanted it. The pain still hurts today sometimes. The lengths that man went to.
To have an intimate relationship with, I mean, I can't believe he put up with this like this long. I can't. I can't. And it just must be because he doesn't want to marry you. He just wants to rape you.
I refused, inside. I couldn't let him know. My virginity was not for him. It was for my husband, the man that I would love above all others. And though I wanted him, at one point, to be my husband, he never would. He was unworthy. Finally, he opened the door and let me get into my car, only to close it and hold on to it, as it was May and my windows were open. He just stared intensely at me with big puppy dog eyes. I knew I wasn't safe yet, not until I left his driveway. Finally, he stepped back and let go of my car. I slowly smiled and left the driveway. I saw him through the rear view of my mirror, and he was shocked that I actually left. And truthfully, if I hadn't been a virgin at the time, I don't think that would have worked.
Or he just really, maybe he liked you. Maybe he just really liked you and wanted to see if this was going to work out. And honestly, sex is an important thing in a relationship. Okay? And it doesn't mean you don't have the right to save yourself for marriage, but this guy can't even look at you and you're giving him mixed signals. Even when you're saying you want to get out and he says, okay, well, you can go. Are you sure? Like, what the fuck?
He was shocked that I had actually left. When I drove home, I saw how close he'd gotten to unknotting all my pants. How close he had gotten to unknotting my pants. There were only 2 knots left. And I couldn't get my pants off either. I had to get a pair of scissors to get them off. I was just going through the motions, and I felt nothing inside. I showered and went to bed, as I wanted the whole thing to be nothing more than a dream. A horrible, horrible dream. I saw my friend the next day. I just drove to her house. No call, no text. I was afraid of being turned away. And I decided that if she wasn't home, I would just sit in her driveway and wait for her. It ended up being one of the best decisions I'd ever made, next to leaving him. She was surprised to see me and happy until she opened the door and got a good look at me. Her face was then filled with great concern. She had company over, and they were pleasant, but also looked concerned. To this day, I wonder what I looked like. She asked them all to leave, and everyone politely excused themselves. She wouldn't let me tell her anything until she made up some tea, and we were comfortable on her couch. She's a wonderful friend. After I told her my story, we talked, and she called him a monster and said that she was sorry I'd gone through that. Before she could continue, I felt the last shred of my sanity snap. I had to correct her. I told her that he wasn't a monster. And then I lost my mind. I can still remember it, flipping everything around in my head. Everything he did because he loved me. It was crazy. I believed we were soulmates and destined to be together. To be honest, she handled my insanity very well. especially since she was clearly horrified and in shock by it. She became convinced that I was lying to protect him, that he had in fact raped me. To this day, I wonder if she ever believed me. I'm married now, and I know I was a virgin on my wedding night. It was a very happy moment. We haven't discussed it in over a decade. She spent hours trying to convince me to stay away from him, and I believe she was making a mountain out of a molehill and was clearly crazy. Just when she thought she was getting me to see the light, my brain would flip back to him being my one true love. I can laugh at the insanity now, but it wasn't funny at the time. My friend was clearly beside herself, and she cried a lot. I hate him, she said. Why? He took my best friend from me, and I want her back. What are you talking about? I'm right here. She gently grabbed my face and looked me deep in the eyes. The intensity made me look away. It felt like she was looking right through me. No, you're not, she said. I don't know where you are, but you're millions of miles away from me. I'd never seen her so sad. Finally, she let me leave. I could tell she didn't want to, for fear I'd go back to him. But I told her I wouldn't, and I'd run if I saw him, even though I thought she was crazy. As the days passed, I realized that she was right. He'd done something to me, as I knew I shouldn't love or miss or long for someone who tried to rape me. My body was racked with pain at missing him. I'd scream and cry while writhing on the floor. Fear coursed through me as I thought, what did that man do to me? What is wrong with me? What is going on? This is not normal. I finally decided that I had to end it. Not my life, the relationship. I decided to call him and say goodbye. I believed that he wanted nothing to do with me, as I hadn't heard from him in almost a week. I thought it would go to voicemail, and I saw it as a loophole with the agreement I made with my friend. I had this whole thing planned in my head about it, too. I was going to say something like, I'm sorry our relationship ended the way it did, and that I wished him nothing but the best. I was insane. Holy crap. However, he answered the phone immediately, and I mean before the first ring ended. I remember thinking, no, you hate me now. You're not supposed to answer the phone. But we had a pleasant and civil conversation until he inquired if I'd willingly have sex with him. I dreaded the question. I felt like he was ruining everything. I wanted things to be the way they were in the very beginning. I took a deep breath and said that I thought we should break. I never finished my sentence. What, he yelled? You're breaking up with me? You're not breaking up with me. I'm breaking up with you. He then took out his quote-unquote Uzi, and everything I told him in trust was turned into bullets, and he fired mercilessly at me. He then blamed our relationship ending on my sister because she was clearly jealous of our perfect love. And I was a fool for listening to her. He went on further to call her a slut and hung up the phone. And of course, I did the one thing that all mature young women do at that time, or at a time like this. I called my mom. And I told my mom that I broke up with my boyfriend, and he was mean to me about it. Understand, that was all she knew. While I was on the phone with her, he called me back. She told me to answer the call and to talk things through. But all I could do was remember all the times she and her boyfriend, for years, would fight, break up, and he'd call her back and they'd make up. And each time they got back together, the cruelty escalated. He even got physically aggressive with me, and still she took him back. This went on for years and years before it finally ended. She's never loved again. She refuses to try. I thought, I will not be like my mother. If I go back, he'll expect sex. Things will only get worse. So I never called him back. I did, however, listen to the voicemail he left. It went something along the lines like this. Hi, sorry about that, but you have to understand, you made me mad, really mad. I was wondering if you'd still be my date to my brother's wedding, like you promised, because civilized people keep their promises. Everyone I played it for thought he was an a-hole. When I finished laughing, I got mad, really mad. Civilized, I thought.
Again, laughing because he wants. Every time he wants something normal from you, you laugh at him. Don't tell me this isn't some kind of game here that you're running on him. Don't. You're not going to convince me. And I can tell you, I'm this far in, I'm sure you haven't convinced many of the commenters or my subscribers either.
Civilized? You're going to talk to me about being civilized? Rage fumed inside of me. And I remembered him calling my sister a slut just because she had a tattoo. No one calls my baby sister a slut. I went through all the drawers and the closet and destroyed every outfit of mine that he loved. Not the smartest thing to do, but oddly enough, they ended up being the ones he abused me the most in. That morning was trash day, so the garbages were empty. I also destroyed every letter and gift he had given me and brought them to the curb while yelling to myself about what a jerk he was for calling my sister a slut. I then came in and got the...
Again, what did he get out of this? His letters, gifts, you're destroying outfits that he abused you in. What did he get out of this relationship? What was his end game here? What was he supposedly waiting for? Wanting to be intimate with you is not rape. It isn't. And you gave him enough mixed signals to that fact.
Big potted plant of flowers he had given me and carried the huge thing with both hands to the curb. I raised it up as high up over my head as I could, which was not very high, and yelled, "Civilized people don't try to rape their girlfriends," and I smashed it on the curb. I then yelled into the street, "How do you like my fire now?" It felt wonderful to do so, especially since I hated the stupid gift. My friend wasn't happy that I had called him, but she was thrilled to see her friend was starting to go back to normal. I told everyone that we broke up because he pushed for sex. I said no, we fought, and he broke up with me. Not a total lie, but not the truth either. And then I never wanted to see him again. I found out years later that one of the high-ups heard me and put things in place, as did my landlady, so that if he reached out, he would be turned away, and I was never informed about it. I deleted every text from him, and it was an eye-opening experience, to say the least. Then I deleted his number. I thought I'd never hear from him again. And I didn't know what he was at the time, otherwise I would have blocked him as well. But deleting his number was enough. Now that I know what he is, I found out his number, I blocked him, deleted him from my phone, and put other things in place to make it very hard for him to contact me, just in case. Anyway, within a number of days of deleting him from my phone, an unavailable number started blowing up my phone. I believe it was him. It was insane. I had to put my phone on vibrate. I began ignoring it, according to the advice of my friend, as she convinced me it was just a prank phone caller and to ignore it. Looking back, I think she knew it was him.
So you don't even know if it was him. It could have been a spam caller. It could have been a telemarketer. Everything is him. Everything. Like, he should have ran on the first date. He should have ran from you on the first date.
At the time, I also remembered tons and tons of flowers, and I do mean tons and tons of flowers, were being delivered to my landlady's home. And she told me that she had a secret admirer. But close to the end of the summer, she made the flowers being sent to her house were constant. They lasted the entire summer, probably until from the end of May, beginning of June, all the way until August or September. She was getting truckloads of flowers. And at the end of the summer, she made a comment stating that the flowers were all my fault, in a fit of rage because she couldn't make them stop. And I was very confused by this. I now think they were from him, meant for me, and she intervened.
Why would he be sending your landlady flower?
I am grateful for what she did, although
He could just send them to your door, right?
it makes me laugh.
See, I think you want this guy to chase. You didn't want to have sex with him, but you wanted him chasing you. You absolutely got off on him chasing you, and when he didn't want to do that anymore, now every random phone call, oh, it's him. No, you need this. You need this because you got daddy issues. Because you didn't get what you needed from your father.
Because as far as I'm concerned, it's karma. She should have told me what he was doing. While I had been dating him, I began to suspect that he was following me around, as he seemed to know things he shouldn't have known otherwise. And after the relationship ended, I believe he continued to stalk me.
How would he know? How would you know what he knows unless you're still in contact with him somehow?
I never saw him, but I always felt him.
Of course you didn't. Of course, because this is all in your head. Because you want him chasing you. You want him chasing you. You want to be able to withhold from him, okay? Because you knew how bad he wanted it. It was probably the first time you felt real power in your life. And you're not willing to give it up. Again, people, this is not the intention of a sponsored video. This is supposed to be for people who are actually in trouble and actually need help.
And usually it was a feeling of malice, and it terrified me. My friend had me practically living at her home for approximately a year, and I believe he hated it the most when I was with her. I was terrified to get out of my car. Sometimes I'd sit in it for practically an hour, waiting for the feeling of malice to go away. My friend told me not to worry about it, and that it was all in my head, and it was only because of everything I had experienced, and that I should only be concerned if I actually saw him. I eventually believed her, as I never did see him, but I felt like I was going insane. There were even times I felt like whoever was watching me loved me deeply and desired nothing more than to protect me. When I stopped
This is all in your
being
head.
at her house all the time and began going back to my normal life, the malice slowly began to go away. And the person watching me only desired to protect me. I'm sorry, I lost my spot. I'm sorry. During this time, I began to decide to try to figure out what had happened to me. And I came across Narcissism and finally your channel. I was shocked and horrified by so many of the stories that you read. I believe he's a narc and possibly a psychopath. At some point during this time, the pain and humiliation of what I endured was too great for me. and I decided to act like it never happened. And I tried to forget about him. It became easier and easier as time passed, as I was busy with work and school. And because of the stories on your channel, I realized that my father was also a narcissist. And I decided to focus on my relationship with him instead. Everything began to make sense. All the pieces finally fell into place. And there was a sad and strange comfort in knowing that I was right about my father, that he didn't love me, and that he never had and never would. When I decided to forget about the psychopath and to live my life like it never happened, my friend was against it at first, but agreed to not talk about him because I told her that if she did, I wouldn't come back to her house. And out of fear for me, she reluctantly agreed.
Why would she be talking about him after you're broken? Like, why? Why would she be talking about him at this point? Unless you're talking about him.
In the end, I ended up meeting my husband. And thank God that we had had a long-distance relationship, as he was in the Navy. My ex still...
Another guy you didn't have to have sex with. So he's in the Navy, so problem solved, right?
Oh, my ex was still stalking me during this time. I strongly believe this.
No, if you don't know if he's stalking you, then he's not stalking you. That's not stalking. Unless you can prove somebody's there, like, that's not stalking.
I strongly believe this.
Of course you do. I'm
I
sure
felt
you
him
do.
almost every day.
You strongly believe a lot of things that don't apparently aren't true that are in your head.
As time passed, the feelings of malice disappeared, as I stated before, but the desire to protect me remained. But again, at the time, I didn't know it was him, and I thought it was all in my head. This lasted for a good 2.5 years. It was time for me to move into the apartment I was going to live in with my husband. Towards the end, a few days before the move, he stayed later than normal to help me pack for the move. We decided to take a break in the evening and go for a walk. And I was on cloud 9. When we returned from our walk, it looked like his car had been involved in a hit and run, and we were shocked as I lived in a very safe area. But we thought it was probably some teenagers or something like that. However, when it happened again the next day, I became concerned. Someone was purposely targeting my fiancé's car, and I believe it was him, but I have no proof. The individual had even tried to remove all the duct tape that my husband and his family had used to hold the side mirror in place. The day after that, however, was moving day, and my supervisor refused to give me the day off. But the boss told her to allow me to at least leave early. So I came into work extra early and intended to leave around 9-10 o'clock so that I could move. However, I ended up getting seriously injured. There was blood and 911 was called, and off to the hospital I went. The hospital sent me to a hand surgeon. By the time I got all the stitches necessary and properly cared for, it was too late for me to move. So I moved the following day. I don't know if he noticed or not that I had moved on moving day. It's possible he was busy that day. I don't know. But if he did see me moving, he left it alone. He may not have wanted the risk of being seen, so he figured he would follow me from work to my new place. I really don't know.
You're laying all these, you haven't even seen this guy. You just assume he's...
But as a result of the injury, I was out of work for a good 3 weeks. The surgeon allowed me to go on my honeymoon as my hand had healed up enough. So the first week, I was completely gone because of the injury. The second week, and a little over the second week, I was on my honeymoon. So at some point into the third week, I eventually got permission to go back to work. Right after the incident with my hand at work, my car was put into the shop to get repaired. I had gotten into an accident months prior. It was not my fault. I got hit at a red light. So thankfully, my car wasn't in front of the new apartment, which was close to my job, and he probably would have passed it and seen it. So there was no way for him to have known where I lived, as my car was not in front of my new place. And I wasn't there, and I wasn't at work. I was nowhere. After the wedding, I left my car at my mom's place. So again, there was no way for him to know where I had moved to. However, during this time, the prank phone calls increased drastically. He had gone from calling me a couple times a month to numerous times a day. Not as badly as the first time, but it was a bit much.
What were the
I never
calls
kept
saying?
proper records of all the phone calls from the quote-unquote prank phone caller. But in 2019, my husband and I...
The phone company has all that. The phone company has it. Either your cell, or if it was a landline, you don't have to keep proper records. It's all on record.
Kids moved, and by 2021, I realized that I hadn't received any prank phone calls from an unavailable number since we moved. Possibly longer, but I'm not sure. And I haven't heard from him since.
Sounds like you haven't heard from him since you talked to him, since the breakup.
Over the past year or two, I began having nightmares again, and crazy dreams that I didn't understand until finally the door opened and I remembered him and everything made sense. All the dreams and everything I'd been going through suddenly made perfect sense. For whatever reason, my mind decided that now was a safe time for me to remember everything and to deal with the abuse I had suffered by his hands. It was horrible, and COVID made getting an appointment with a therapist much, much harder. But I finally found one. I spoke to my mom, and she helped us pay for it. Things are finally starting to look up. But anyway, finding a therapist who could handle what he put me through was difficult. And one that knew enough about narcissism to understand made it even harder. But I found one, and she does EMDR, and it has been extremely helpful. And I'm finally starting to truly be able to enjoy being with my husband for the first time. And that is priceless for me.
So this is the first time you're able to enjoy being with your husband. So you're not happy there. So let's dredge all this back up. This is all based on your insecurities and your jealousies. And yes, your desire to have this guy chase you. You need to be chased. Soon as the calls stop, as you said, and you move, now you need to dredge this all back up again.
I hope that wasn't too much info. And I'm finally able to focus on my kids and my life again, and live in the present moment, and not dwell so much on the past. On a certain number of notes, I'd like to state that because of him, I know things now I wish I didn't know. One of them was I didn't know it was possible to be physically abusive with someone and not leave a mark of any kind. When I began getting my memories back, I thought he was gentle with me because he didn't want to hurt me, because he did love me on some level. But I now realize it was because he loved his reputation and not me. He knew that if he left a mark, it would be evidence that could be used against him. So he was careful with me to make sure there wasn't any evidence that could be used. Truly, he was evil, and I pray he never comes back into my life. I miss the girl I used to be, which is funny because for the most of my life, I had hated her. And I had only begun to accept who I was shortly before meeting him. It's true what they say, you never appreciate what you have until it's gone. Better late than never, I suppose.
What are you crying over? What did you have that was gone? This guy? What? Again, this is again. Are you crying over the fact that this guy's not chasing you anymore? And acting like, oh my God, I'm so scared? You're not. You're not.
But I do miss her. So now I'm learning to love the shattered woman I am now. It's all good, though. She's not that bad of a person to be, truth be told. Two more things. I believe he planned the rape on that day for the sole purpose of getting me pregnant. He had been obsessed with my menstrual cycle and knew from my landlady that I wasn't on the pill. And we had conversations about how pro-life I was. One of the questions he asked was, if you got pregnant from rape, would you have an abortion? I had said no, and it had made him happy. And finally, when I told my mom about him, not in full detail.
That could just mean he's pro-life too. I mean, it doesn't mean he's planning on raping you and impregnating you.
Nowhere near the amount of detail that you guys received. When I told her about him, she was horrified because she had known him. This is one of the reasons why I ended up trusting him quickly. Our families knew each other from church. I didn't know him personally because of our age difference growing up, but our parents knew each other, though. And I'm not sure, I can't ask my dad as he is dead now, and I wouldn't if he was alive. But I think they knew each other through men's Bible studies and men's retreats. My ex wore the same cologne as my father. Coincidence? I don't think so.
No, I told you this is all about your father. You don't want to bang your father, but you wanted your father's attention. And you're not going to get your father's attention, okay, the attention of a father through a boyfriend. And especially a boyfriend that you're not going to, that you don't want to have any intimacy with whatsoever. Again, what was this guy supposed to be getting out of this relationship other than buying you things? Buying you gifts, giving you flowers and attention, and holding you the way you wanted your father to hold you. You don't see the whole thing is sick? You don't see that a lot of this is on you? You don't? You must at this point.
Also, my mom and his mom knew each other. And they went to women's Bible studies and retreats, and even sang in the choir together. His mom also babysat me and my siblings growing up. Knowing what I do now, I believe she is a narc too. She ruled with an iron fist, and I could do no wrong in her eyes, while my brothers were seen as vile individuals, and she felt that she needed to protect me from them. And I hated it when she babysat. She also bragged about what great young men her boys were growing into because of her parenting. Ha ha ha. All right. That's it. Thank you all for listening. and I hope you all take care. Sincerely, life goes on. Bye.
Rape is a very serious thing. And to be throwing the term out there like this, I mean, is I have problems with it. I really do. Do I think the guy might have got a little handsy with you and inappropriate? Yeah, probably. But I think you were also giving him mixed signals. This is the first guy you ever kissed, and you're an adult. You know nothing about relationships. You know nothing. All you know is you want to be sought after and desired and be like, nope, you get nothing. But buy me gifts. Buy me nice things and flowers, not toothbrushes. Even though he's giving you signs that he wanted to do something with you long term, okay, making room in his apartment, a toothbrush spot in the closet, spot in the shower. All because you wanted a better relationship with your father, and you're not going to improve your relationship with your father or get what you wanted from your father through a boyfriend. You wanted your father to care about you and chase around you like that, okay? And obviously you don't want to have sex with your father, but you're not going to get that in a boyfriend, okay? And I think you manipulated this guy, you twisted these things around, you flew off the handle way too early, and it sounds like you were only with this guy for 2.5 months. It doesn't even seem like it was that long. And yet you're saying the guy stalked you, you never saw him, you got anonymous phone calls. It's like, this is what you needed as opposed to what he did. Because it sounds like if he wanted to find you, he could have found you very, very, very easily. He can't kiss you, he can't touch you, he can't look at you. Oh boy, what a deal. I'm glad you're married and you're in a relationship now. But let me tell you something, you better fix this. Otherwise, you are going to destroy your marriage and you're going to destroy your children with this nonsense. Okay? That wasn't rape. It wasn't. Did he get handsy? Probably. Should he have ended it earlier? Sure. Yes. He should have ended it on the first date. But I think there was some kind of fantasy, forced on fantasy from both ends. And this is all because you're looking to replace your father with a boyfriend. And you can't ever do that. So I hope that helps. And again, people, sponsored videos are supposed to be for people who are in dire need, okay, current need, not for past boyfriends, not for any of that, okay. And I should have looked at this a little bit before I started it, because it's just such a big video, but it is what it is, and it turns out this is going to be another one of those videos, and I'm sure life goes on is going to hate me, say I'm attacking her, how dare I. I'm sure I'm going to hear it, I'm sure, but I can't blow smoke up your ass here. You need to fix your problems with your past, with your father and your mother, which is what led to all of this. Okay? You played a very dangerous game with this guy, and something bad could have happened, but it didn't. So I hope that helps. Thank you for your story, and thank you to Joe so much for the very nice contribution. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, something you'd like me to expose, you'd like to set up a Skype phone call, have a private video made, you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with either The PayPal, Zelle, or Cash App links in the description box and my email address. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been Refuge from Narcissism. Take care, everyone.